Gluconeogenesis is the process by which amino acids can be turned into glucose. You always have gluconeogenesis occurring in the body. This process takes place all the time, and nothing can stop it. Logically, you might expect that consuming glucose would slow down or even stop gluconeogenesis, but paradoxically, it is often the opposite that will occur. Thankfully, there are ways to keep gluconeogenesis from having negative effects, and even to make this process work in your favor.
Yes, I think I know just the thing.
Sir? You have to tell me what your plan is, or nothing will happen.
Many also assume that consuming amino acids will increase the rate of gluconeogenesis. After all, we are constantly bombarded with the slogan calories in, calories out. Again, this result simply does not occur because this is regulated not by the calories you eat but by your hormonal status. Gluconeogenesis rates are controlled by the most misunderstood and maligned hormone in the entire body, cortisol. Cortisol goes up in response to a perceived lack of energy. Lactate, alanine, and glycine are converted to glucose and sequestered in the liver glycogen for use as needed. That sounds scary, but most of this comes from metabolic byproducts, and most of the rest come from cells that spontaneously die while fasting. All cells reproduce at different rates, and the cells that die off quickly, such as the gut, stomach, and skin, provide most of this material while fasting. Losing these cells can be a big positive, especially for the obese. This means that your skin will not become as loose when losing weight in this manner. Otherwise, you may not look much better after you lose the weight than before you did.
I went on the Subway diet, just like Jared. I've lost 180 pounds. I do have a little bit of excess skin, though. Bit of a problem here, yeah.
When fasting, your stomach and intestines also shrink. Since the hunger hormone ghrelin is produced in the cells of the stomach itself, this is a very important reason why weight you lose fasting tends to stay off much more easily than when you calorically restrict for protracted periods. When you simply eat less every day for long periods, you have less die-off of stomach cells, but at the same time you are not regenerating your other organs, so they slowly shrink. This leads to a situation where you have the hunger you did when you were much heavier, while your metabolism goes down more and more from losing tissue in places you're not supposed to, such as your kidneys and heart. For those who are underweight, more growth hormone is produced during the fast than for the obese. This means when you break the fast, you will produce more lean tissue. So the large obese man will lose some tissue, but only in the places needed. He will generate just enough growth hormone to preserve his precious organs. The case of a frail, underweight female with osteoporosis will play out much differently. She will produce more growth hormone and actually gain lean tissue in her intestines and stomach. This will also strengthen her bones, which are mainly made of collagen. This in turn will stimulate her hunger, which is often a big issue with the elderly due to a typical pattern of slow withering over time, especially on a high-carb, low-protein diet, which is sadly what the government promotes to us. Once the fast is over, cortisol drops quickly, usually to levels lower than when the fast started. In this manner, people with stress issues can restore their equilibrium and stop waking up in the middle of the night in a panic. Unfortunately, during the fast, cortisol can be so high your sleep can be quite disturbed. But the more often you fast, the less this seems to happen. Ultimately, cortisol's function is to create energy for the body. While it does so partially through gluconeogenesis, it also stops the uptake of glucose by cells, promotes fat mobilization, and increases fat burning. Yes, this scary hormone you're constantly warned about is actually a fat-burning hormone. So don't listen to people who tell you they can't lose weight while fasting due to cortisol. This is absolute nonsense. On the other hand, high cortisol while not fasted will slowly grind down your metabolism and make you frail, which destroys your body. This is because insulin and cortisol are meant to counterbalance each other. They are never meant to be high at the same time, even though you always have some of each in your system. When you have a bad diet that produces lots of insulin spikes, you also drive up cortisol until both are high at once. The insulin spikes from eating, your blood sugar goes down, cortisol jumps up and you get hungry, and it's a vicious cycle that just gets worse and worse. When insulin is elevated, cortisol can't mobilize fat from the fat cells, and the only option it has for energy production is to elevate gluconeogenesis. So while you may have thought carbs in the diet would lower gluconeogenesis, in fact it never decreases it and it tends to increase it. This in turn increases catabolism in the body. In Cushing's syndrome, cortisol is chronically elevated. This leads to the destruction of lean tissue, especially collagen. Extreme stretch marks are typical of Cushing's. The metabolism becomes slow and midsection adiposity develops. When your cortisol is elevated at the same time as your insulin, whether from a medical condition or bad diet, you will develop the same issues over time. So it behooves you as much as possible to avoid this situation. When cortisol does attack your body, it is glycine from collagen it is seeking out in order to turn it into glucose. If you have high cortisol, then glycine supplementation is a no-brainer. This will provide substrate to your liver to create glucose without causing the destruction of collagen in the body and its very negative effects on your organs. This is part of why glycine supplementation is a great idea for everyone, but the ultimate solution to chronically elevated cortisol is fasting and a lower carb diet and restricting refined carbs. This will bring insulin down, which allows cortisol to make use of fat within fat cells and stop burning your precious collagen, which destroys your body. This will also help if your cortisol is from a medical condition, and in that case supplementing glycine would also probably help a great deal in avoiding the negative symptoms of lean mass loss and central adiposity. Glycine also increases growth hormone in the body. So when you are fasting, glycine will not only help stop lean tissue loss, but also help you create more lean tissue when you break the fast. On top of all that, glycine can also help you get to sleep, and it doesn't break your fast. It even lowers uric acid in the body. You may worry that taking glycine will lead to more gluconeogenesis, but as I stated earlier, this is not the case. Gluconeogenesis only occurs as a response to hormone levels. So you can take all the glycine you like while fasting and it won't increase it. Keep in mind though, sometimes you want to lose some lean tissue while fasting, especially when you are obese. You may want fat loss, but you probably don't want to look like you're swimming in your own skin once the weight is off. If you have cancer or are worried about developing it, you may also want to have more catabolism of your flesh for obvious reasons.
I see. Well, that's settled. Everyone eats me. Well, what's that? No, you go ahead. I won't. Nonsense, sir. You're starving. Tuck in.
No, it's not just that.
What's the matter with Johnson, sir?
Well, he's not kosher.
For someone who is more lean, then glycine could help a lot with ensuring you don't come out of the fast worse off than when you started. This is especially important for the frail and elderly, who may not have much tissue to spare in the first place. Also keep in mind that intense, prolonged exercise spikes cortisol and can be very catabolic. And again, while your body can deal with this when insulin is low, it's especially destructive when insulin is high in the body. That's why marathon runners look like stick figures. It is very catabolic to do that much intense cardio, and they usually make it worse by constantly drinking glucose as they run and having a high carb diet. Weightlifting, on the other hand, will have very little influence on cortisol. Interval training will also have only moderate effects. That is why you should prefer this kind of exercise when fasting, and in fact you should probably simply prefer this kind of exercise all the time. Cortisol is much maligned and misunderstood, but like many things in physiology, the context matters a great deal. For metabolically unhealthy people, Cortisol and insulin creep up with age and lead to poor body composition and frailty. For those who fast, it is briefly spiked, but lowered insulin and increased growth hormone negate its otherwise harmful effects. And once the fast is over, cortisol levels are dramatically reduced. Cortisol also plays a large role in regulating circadian rhythm. The effect of fasting on cortisol is how fasting regulates your circadian rhythm over time. Fasting essentially resets your hormonal status to the factory default. If you try to force weight loss or weight gain in an improper manner, you will quickly make things worse, and improper hormone levels are very damaging. Yet if you work with the body and concentrate on proper hormonal status, your body will regulate its metabolism and lean tissue growth and work with you.
The fat just walks away.
Since eating amino acids won't increase gluconeogenesis, at this point you may ask yourself, why not just eat meat on your fast? Just remember, it's also gluconeogenesis that drives autophagy, and if you eat too much protein, this stops completely. mTOR also won't be influenced by simply having some glycine, but it will be influenced by eating meat. If you want more than just weight loss, you don't want to halt this process completely. However, a fasting mimicking diet has been shown to have most of the effects of a water fast. This allows for up to 18 grams of protein and unlimited fat. Beyond that, autophagy and other beneficial processes quickly fade away, but that gives you quite a bit of room to control just how deep your fast goes. For those on meds that cannot be stopped, or who have other issues regarding fasting, you can still get the majority of the results this way. Your body's inner workings aren't always intuitive, but if you take the time to understand how it works, you can get the results you want much more easily.
We're leaving now.
You are leaving. But are you really leaving?
Bainbridge, you're acting crazy.
I am acting crazy. But am I really acting crazy?
It's the end of the show, Bainbridge.
It is the end of the show.